Moving on to track weathering, it's a very subjective matter, and what you ought to do is go and do some research online and find a prototypical track that suits your requirement. Here what we've gone for is a more of a bleached look, so I'll show you how I've done it. I'm using a Humbrol paint and a medium-sized paintbrush. So don't overload the paintbrush, and just it's a typical learning curve. It's kind of a crawl, walk, run. So just one bit at a time, and then come into the track and just give it a little light dusting over. And what you're trying to do is remove the plastic shine that you invariably get with plastic track. And just take small steps, just take a couple of inches of track at a time, and it'll soon come along. And if you live in an area where you find a lot of sort of red ballast, you'll find that your sleepers will have a kind of a red dust look to them, whereas here I'm going for a much more sun-bleached kind of look. As you can see from the rail, all rails rust. Okay, it's just a matter of time really, and you will find that older rust will kind of look more dark and newer rust will kind of look lighter. So again, you'll find your rails, find the look you're after, and what I've decided to use is a Humbrol paint with a very fine brush, and like I say, just a couple of inches at a time as you just paint it up. Try to spread it a little bit further than just the rails, because it also looks good on the chairs, because they would naturally rust. So you've got the rail, the wedges and the chairs all looking the same kind of shade. During this you're absolutely bound to get paint on the top of the rails, so naturally when you finish this and before you run your trains you're going to use a Peco track rubber to remove the paint, but do it when it's dried. Don't try to remove it whilst it's wet. And now the fun bit, ballasting. So a few hours have gone by and the paint's all dried and we're good to go. We've also fitted some white masking tape along the edge to protect the cess from the ballast as it's laid, so we can easily pull the tape away and any ballast that's stuck to it will come away with it. Now, the ballast that we've chosen to use is clean ballast grey medium grade from Peco. This is one of their 12 products in their ballast range. So, when you apply the ballast and then you apply the glue, the ballast will darken as it dries. So just be aware, when you make your ballast choice, then it will dry darker. Before you do any ballasting whatsoever though, please make sure that your track runs perfectly, that all your locos and trains will run around it, because if there's a problem, once you've ballasted, you're into all sorts of problems. So decanting the ballast into a small container, I find the easiest way to apply this is with a small teaspoon. So this is how I normally do it. I get some of this and I simply lay it into the tracks like this, and then I run my thumb down the tracks until it spreads evenly through the sleepers. And you can see that it spreads out quite evenly. There's always going to be some overspill, and obviously that will then fill up the sides of the cork. And obviously what we do need to cover all of the cork. As I'm sure you're aware, this is not the fastest process in the world. This takes a bit of time. To get the ballast off of the rails, what I tend to do is I tend to tap the rails, and as you can see the ballast, it tends to jump away off the track. And then you keep going one little piece at a time until you've got the ballast in the right place. Yes, it's a long, laborious task, but it will pay dividends if you make a good job at this stage. You might find that a brush will come in handy just to keep the ballast away from the rails and off the sleepers, and then work your way along in one direction so that the excess is all being swept in one direction, and then it will naturally fill any holes that might appear as you work your way down the track. And there we are, as you can see, it's finding its own level. But the change is enormous. It looks totally different as soon as the ballast is in place. So the thing is to do one small section at a time. Don't go mad and just lay all the ballast all over the track, because you're bound to apply too much, and then it's always a problem getting it away, getting it off of the track. So hopefully you can see there that it's starting to take shape. Again, a little bit of vibration on the rails, and it tends to lift the ballast off of the sleeper tops and in between the sleepers. Then it's a simple case of repeating the process for the centre and for the side, and then we move on to the gluing.